Thank you very much for staying with us. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. I'm joined by the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, in the 2023 elections, Adebayo, for discussion on dealing with the fuel subsidy removal aftershocks. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, sir.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here.
All right. So let's start with the decision to remove the subsidy on petrol. What's your view on this?
I've already expressed my views before the election. I gave alternatives to it. I was opposed to it. And when it was announced, I think you even interviewed me on it. So my views are set on it that it was a policy option that should not have been taken, especially for the problems that were diagnosed at the time, and especially now given the full implication. So it's what is happening now was predictable. So I don't, on the part of the government and on the part of the people, no one should act too surprised. This is a natural consequence. It is not a Bola Tinubu problem. If you put me there and I take a decision like this, the price of petrol will be the same. The same prices will follow it. So it's not about the person who took that decision. It's about the wrongness of the decision itself.
Okay. So do you agree with the flotation of the naira should have been delayed for some time after the fuel subsidy removal?
No, because that's a different issue on its own. So if you identify problems in the fiscal situation of the country, you identify problems in mismanagement of foreign exchange, to keep the foreign exchange at that price, the central bank will need to be funding it, and they'll be funding errors. So the effect has exacerbated one after the other because the products that they are removing subsidy from happens to be a product denominated in the dollar. So there's a kind of arbitrage that is there. So you have that problem, managing foreign exchange, also managing the fiscal side of it. But the problem that people are reacting to, they are reacting to the cost of living implication of it. There are other things they are not seeing. The productivity cost, especially we'll call it factor cost. The fact that it's raising factor cost for everybody, including the government itself. So it's a problem that needs to be managed on its own. So you can't say if you remove the subsidy, then you keep round-tripping money to foreign exchange. It's not going to save you. So the solution to this problem will have been to audit the process of the subsidy and ensure that you take the people outside the need for the subsidy, so that you ask yourself, or answer the question which we have been asking, who are we actually subsidizing? There are two undesirables in the subsidy regime. One, subsidizing foreign people who are our neighbors nearby. Also, subsidizing the rich who can afford, like me, to buy fuel at appropriate price. But what you forget is that the rich and the poor meet in the gas station. So because both of us go to the filling station, we don't have the same income. So government ought to know that what I need to do is petrol is too dear for the common people to afford based on their income level, based on the level of poverty in the country. So I will do like other countries are doing. Why is it that in New York, where I am, which is the capital of capitalism, this is where Wall Street is. Why is it that the city of New York, city of Brooklyn, other cities have bus services for the poor? So if you are disabled, if you are old, if you are a veteran, if you are a public servant, you get your transport virtually free. Then if you are a common person, if you're a traveler, if you get to the airport in LaGuardia or JFK, you can decide to take Uber. You can decide to take a yellow taxi for $45, $37, depending on your distance. You can decide to take the bus for $3, $2. So they are ensuring, even in the capital of capitalism, that services are available so that people can go to work easily. No worker should spend more than 5% of their income on transportation. And they shouldn't spend more than maybe 8% to 10% on food. then you can now start taking that. You are running an economy. So I don't want people dragging me down into managing petroleum business. That is not my business. If you want to run a government, you run a government. You make sure that you run the macroeconomics. Don't start following NNPC, GMD is going to the villa, they are coming out, they are announcing. Are we in petroleum business? So that is for those farms. What we are into is managing productivity in the economy and managing social welfare in the economy and managing the balancing of the budget of the government and raising revenue for development for the country. Let us focus on that. And that's where the government has made a big mistake.
All right, Mr. Adebayo. So another thing is the value of the naira keeps sliding. Why is this so? And why have we not sorted out the retail end of the forex market?
The issue is that we are deifying and mystifying the foreign exchange market. It is just how much money trades for money. We need too much dollars in Nigeria. That is where the problem comes. And we are not producing enough in the name of naira. Sorry, there will be an announcement, but you can hear me. We are not using naira for productivity. So things that you can produce with naira, even cassava, yam, simple things, education. For example, you can educate a person from age of 0 or to become a PhD in medicine using naira. We're not even doing that. We are sending some of our children to go to the UK, to other countries, to go and get education that is inferior to the education that I got at IFE. And we are paying so much money for it. So a lot of misbehavior on our part. Our president is riding around in a convoy of Mercedes, and it doesn't produce the spoke of a bicycle. So we are doing all of this spending. We are creating new agencies. We are spending so much money on election. The 80-something billion that INEC collected from government, what they used to do? They used to import many things for the election. So we are spending so much money. So this is where the money is disappearing to. We are importing food. We are importing so many things that we can produce locally. So that is what is happening. And what Buhari did, and some government before Buhari did, was that they were artificially bumping up the value of the naira, not the productivity behind the naira. So, and as they were doing it, they were creating a gap between the real price in the market and the price at which they are selling it. And the people in the villa stepped into it and started becoming billionaires by collecting officially and then go to sell in the black market or burying it under their floor in their houses until they have time to go and launder it. So this is what is happening. There's no magic. So what is going to happen is that the naira is traveling towards.
All right, tonight we're speaking with the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party in the 2023 elections, Adewale Adebayo, for discussion on dealing with the fuel subsidy removal aftershocks. Mr. Adebayo, are you back with us?
I'm at an airport, so we're making adjustments to so that I don't get blocked by the passengers passing by.
It's okay, so, you can go on.
Okay, so basically, we are paying attention to how our money will be equal to another person's money. But what we should be paying attention to is how we can use the factors of production in our economy to produce enough of our basic needs in our economy, so that, like we used to do before, it's only industrial goods that we will be importing, goods that we use to produce valuable goods. But virtually everything we are doing now is even drinks that we drink is being imported. So that is where the problem of foreign exchange is. It's a different problem on its own, and it cannot be solved because the way the Nigerian money is traveling towards Tanzanian shilling. So it's going to be around 2,000 naira to the dollar, except we reduce our consumption of foreign goods and foreign services. Secondly, we reduce our establishment costs, and we also regulate the lifestyle of those who have access to foreign exchange. Now, if you go to the import and export window, where we are now pricing the dollar, you will see that they are still restricting access. So it's still not a free market. So people who are not given, if you follow what is happening in the market in the last 10 days, you will see that people still demand more than the amount that the central bank can supply. And what is happening, therefore, is that people still go back to the what we call the black market to go there and push their luck there. So the appropriate pricing hasn't been reached. And then there are still some items which the government has outrightly banned from the market. So those items, they are still being imported. They are not banned from the country, but they are banned from the market. So when you have all this pent-up demand, what's going to happen? And then in the 2023 budget, the government itself is importing a lot from that currency. And with the devaluation of the naira, what are you getting? You are getting that what government price for 1 billion naira, government will need about 1.6 billion or more to be able to purchase it. If the government did a road contract with a company and the price is at 7 billion, and they are going to import bitumen, import other things, what's going to happen is that in the end, that company is going to come back for variation because they can't deliver it. So those are all the adjustments, but those are things which the central bank can manage. That is why I recommend that the central bank should run away from the people in the villa completely. They should not make a big mistake of appointing somebody in the central bank who will be now going to the villa every day and taking instruction from there. They should appoint someone who is independent, who knows all these problems, who knows that government, as far as the Central Bank of Nigeria is concerned, the federal government is a problem. The state governments are a problem. They're not partners. So it will also regulate them and making sure that it doesn't give them too much money. Luckily now they are making some naira, additional naira, because now they don't have to fund subsidy and they don't have to pump too much to support the dollar. So they are making some money, and if they go to where the real revenue of the government is, without making excuses for their donors, their friends, the way they can be brutal in removing subsidy from petrol that the poor uses, if they can use that same severity to make sure that they collect government taxes, they review some of the concessions where government money goes into private hands, and they manage the procurement processes, they can save a lot of money, and then we can now start directing towards productivity. But Nigeria must export in order to survive. And before you export, we must be able to settle down at home and reduce our import of the things that we can easily produce here. And there are a lot of funding that you can get to get industrial activity to go on. But when you are reeling out these things, people will say, oh, it's easy to say. There's nothing we can do than to say it. But if you are in government, all the tools to make what you are saying to come to pass are inside the government. But you have to make choices. In an economy, the government is an arbiter between those who have a lot and those who don't have, between the employer and the employee, between those who are employed and are asking for more salaries and those who are not employed, and government needs to create new opportunities for them. What's happening in Nigeria is that the government is one-sided. The government is always on the side of the rent seekers who are already taking advantage of the country, and they are controlling the politics. They are the one funding the politicians. They are the one paying courtesy call to them. They are the one bringing foreign partners to them. And the government can stay in the villa and forget the people. So this is where government needs to be reminded that the real money of Nigeria lies in the brain and muscle of Nigerians, not in anybody's refineries, anybody's factory. The real money is getting majority of Nigerians to produce. So imagine a country where we get every eligible adult in Nigeria to give you the value of $2,000 a month in value, and you employ 100 million Nigerians. The economy is getting $2 trillion dollars regularly. So those are the things they need to do. But if you have majority of your working age people unemployed, you are losing wealth, because sitting down doing nothing is not a good thing for any economy. Even if they are planting trees, fitting potholes, teaching children ABC, doing something, you will climb out of poverty, because employment is the palliative. Employment is number one palliative. Any palliative that does not include employment does not work.
All right, Mr. Adebayo. Now, talking about petrol subsidy removal and the reactions that have followed this decision, you say the pains outweigh the gains.
No, I'm saying one, a lot of the pain is unnecessary. Because if you have a problem with your eyes, maybe you have conjunctivitis or whatever, and the doctor prescribed to give you an injection in the eye, he can say, well, you need the pain. You don't need the pain. You don't need to give an injection in my eye to be able to cure what Nigerians call Apollo. You can give me some capsules to take. You can give me injection in the appropriate part of my body, but you don't give me injection directly in the eye because you are trying to cure my eye disease. So that's what I'm saying. In order to be able to control wastage of government money in the subsidy regime, you don't need to throw your people into poverty. You don't need to dislocate their productivity by making it difficult for a tailor to buy 2 gallons of petrol and put in the generator to sew their clothes and make some money to feed their family. You don't have to make it difficult for children to go to school because they can't afford the transport to go to school. And the teacher who is teaching them is using 60% of their salary. And are you not seeing that in Nigeria today, officially, some governors, some state government are telling their employees, government employees who are supposed to render services, don't come to work more than 2 days in a month, in a week. Don't come to work more than 3 days in a week. So if a government that's supposed to govern the people and govern the affairs of the country and run services, security, water, everything, is telling its essential workers, don't come to work because your salary is not enough. So that is enough feedback to know that this is where the danger is. Every country who wants to develop must have citizens who are ready to pay the right price. But you don't pay unnecessary price. Like the president said, it's like the pangs of childbirth. Majority of our population knows what childbirth means. But even in the normal taking care of maternity care, doctors have over time examined whether every childbirth pain is necessary. So they created epidural. So if a woman is in severe pain, you can give them epidural or other thing to reduce the pain. So it's not every pain that is necessary. Secondly, why should people who are not pregnant be going through childbirth pangs? They're not going to deliver any baby. That's exactly this metaphor for the economy. The pain is not going to produce any result because you could produce that same result without the pain by auditing government processes, because government is losing money in every sphere.
So Mr. Adebayo, are you saying that palliative should have been provided before removal of subsidy?
That will not help. That will only delay the pain for 5 days. What I am saying is that some have said, oh, if you first produce the palliative, for example, what are the palliatives as announced by the government? Are you saying if you pay pay stipends to the poor 6 months before you remove subsidy, when you remove subsidy, the price will not get to this point? No, what they are calling palliatives, all of them, whether it's APC, whether it's PDP, whether it's Labour, what they call palliative is not palliative at all. If you want to know in fact, in the management of savings from reduction of subsidy, the government that did it the best was Abacha with their PTF. And even that method that they used still did not solve the problem. So imagine then the second one that managed it a bit was the Sure P. If you study Sure P of Jonathan, that Sure P itself still didn't solve the problem. What we need to do is to make social investment generally. Make sure that you benchmark the cost of living and the cost of productivity, which you call factor cost. Transportation, housing, logistics, food. Make sure. And then you benchmark it against people's salary. And like I said, don't go into salary increment because that will finally kill everybody. The person who collects the salary will not be able to take the money home to buy anything because the cost of everything you are buying will now outstrip your salary. Remember, that in 1980, President Shagari of Nigeria had a salary increment. They increased his salary to 30,000 naira a year. And Vice President Ekwueme's salary was increased to 24,000 naira a year. So the Vice President was earning 2,000 naira a month. And the President was earning 2,500 a month. And we were still saying it was too high. I was young at that time, but I had the argument, they were saying it was too high. Now imagine, your minimum wage is 30,000. So are you going to carry your minimum wage per month to 200,000? In which case, agege bread, which is now maybe 200 naira, will now become 3,000 naira. Then petrol, which is now 700 naira in some places, 600 naira in some places, might now become 4,000 naira. So what have you gained? If your salary is 200,000 and you are using 35,000 a day to take transport. So what we need to govern is inflation. Let the government manage macroeconomics. Let them go and manage inflation. Let them manage the fiscal discipline of government. Let them manage the cost of living.
All right.
So when they reduce all of that, nobody will care. Remember, all these arguments, all these debates about one product, petrol, what of food, what of housing, what of healthcare, what of school fees, what of other costs. So you cannot argue over one product. You have to make sure that you bring the general cost of everything down. In fact, what Nigeria needs now is rebasement of the money and reduction in salary for everybody across, including those lawless people in National Assembly who are just appropriating money for themselves, forgetting that the power of appropriation given to them is to appropriate money for the general welfare of the country. You don't abuse that power. It's like a policeman who arrests everybody who annoys him because he has power of arrest, or a judge who gives judgment against everybody who has anything to do with him because he has power of judiciary. If you have legislative power to appropriate money, you should make sure you don't appropriate money for yourself anyhow. That was why, under the Constitution, we created a revenue commission that is to fix salary and wages for public officials so that you don't abuse that power. So these are all the things we need to do. But Nigerian people need to understand that the problem we have now is a wrong-headed neoliberal policy that we took. The same mistake we took with decisions in 1986 with SAP. What we're having now is SAP 2.0, where we just took some drastic decisions that adjusted negatively all the factor costs in the country, and purchasing power collapsed. So we can manage this and cooperate with the government, and the government needs to rethink. But the first step is to make sure that you make the people of Nigeria not to remember petrol when they wake up.
All right.
For their transportation, for their cooking food at home, and all of that, make investment in those things. Whether you call it subsidy, whether you call it anything, make sure that you can benchmark and say that a worker who works should not have to spend more than 8% of their salary on transport.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Adebayo.
Yeah.